Howdy, folks. Chris McLean here, Peak Performance and Transformation Coach, and welcome to yet another episode of the Peak Performance and Predictable Growth Show, the peak performance show for creative agency founders, owners, and leaders, where we explore the agency journey from the unique perspectives of those at the coalface of the industry. And my weekly guests help unlock and dissect strategies, tools, and tactics from the trenches to help you deliver better results for your clients and grow and scale your agency to 6-7 figures and beyond. And my guest in the studio today is Tyler Garner from Standout Social. And they specialize in helping established e-comm brands rapidly scale with Facebook ads, and I'm sure all things social. And I look forward to getting that into that with you today. Tyler, welcome on the show. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Excited to be here.
Absolute pleasure. Looks like it's nice and warm up where you're at.
It is.
But we've lost our summer. Our summer just finished yesterday. Now we're into it.
Oh yeah, bring on autumn.
Yeah. So immediately dropped into winter here in Melbourne.
Yeah, totally.
So tell us about yourself. Tell us about Standout Social. How did this journey begin for you?
Oh God, it's I'll try and keep a long story short, but I started Standout Social. I started in the agency space maybe 4-ish or so years ago. Started in a job in sales, actually working in sales for what I didn't realize was actually a digital agency, but everything was outsourced to India and just to extremely cheap service providers where the quality was really, really low. And that was basically my entry point where I started to understand a little bit about the digital marketing space, where I knew nothing about it before. So being a salesperson at the time, they educate you on, how to sell the products, how to sell social, how to sell websites, those kinds of things. And the first thing that kind of drew me in was when I started to find out about this thing called the Facebook Pixel and how Facebook advertising can target certain types of people, ages, genders, and you can actually be extremely specific. And my ears perked up because coming from sales where you don't have that level of specificity ever, like your leads are totally different at all times, to be able to then find the ideal person at the ideal age, at the ideal, pretty much everything. I found that extremely fascinating. And so even before going down the agency route or knowing that that's what I wanted to do, I started diving deep into understanding more about it, how it could work, found a few different business and entrepreneurial groups and e-commerce groups and all this different stuff. And eventually it led to me finding someone else that I worked with who knew a lot about websites and other things. And we actually went out together as a partnership at the time, different business, tried to start a digital agency that way. That was basically an everything for everyone. Like most good partnerships, it didn't work out. But there was a lot to learn from that. And then that's where Standout Social was born. So just on its own. At that point, I had to make a decision where it was like, I either go back to work and call it quits and say, failed venture, whatever, or I try and do it myself. And rather than trying to be an everything for everyone, we go all in on just Facebook ads, which is the decision I made. And so for about 3.5, 4 years, kind of lost count now, the days and the years all blend together at this point. We've been working with some pretty cool names in the e-commerce and also the digital product space, so the info product space. We've worked with some, I guess you would call them high budgets, but since then we've been able to work with, I guess that's pretty much it.
Cool.
Not sure where else to go from there.
Yeah, no, I love the journey. It's that classic fail forward sort of journey that we tend to go on as business owners, as entrepreneurs, right? Not everything works out, but the true gritty entrepreneur always comes back with the next thing and has that next inspiration of, well, that didn't work, but I'm not going to stop there. Like, a lot of people have a failed business and they throw the towel in and go, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm no good at business," or whatever. But the genuine entrepreneur sort of goes, "Well, I've learned from that. What did I do wrong? What did I do great? What can I learn? What can I pick up and dust off and do better next time?" And it sounds like you went through that process of kind of really discerning what didn't work, what did work. And I really love what you're saying about when you're being everything for everyone, didn't work out, and that's generally the case. What was there any specific reason, aside from sort of the Facebook niche, that you specifically went for sort of e-com and product and that sort of?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Me specifically, when I first got into just the done-for-you Facebook ads like that specifically, I was like, okay, I'll take on any client. So it was still the everything for everyone, just it was a little more niche in the, we're Facebook ads and that's it. Yeah. And actually, I tried to get away from e-com. I didn't want e-com clients. Right. For the first year or two, I was very focused on just trying to get lead gen clients. I cared about the local business niche and I found it very easy. But then I started to get very frustrated and annoyed with the way the local business niche worked, the complaints of local business owners, the constant battle for them not understanding that they need to call their leads and close their leads. And I had a few different e-commerce clients at the time, but not many. And I think what ended up happening was I got so fed up with dealing with the local business, the minutiae of a local business where they're constantly complaining about invoices, that it's too expensive, that we're spending too much on ads, that the leads are shit, and there's this and there's that and there's everything else. And I decided that I'd rather stay in complete control of the scenario, and I would rather be able to have a direct input and outcome, or direct control over whether we're making our client money or not. I found that when you're giving leads to a client, it's then up to them to call them on time and actually have a good sales process or have the right systems in place to be able to facilitate all of the leads, which 9 times out of 10 they didn't have. And like most local businesses, they don't have that. And so, I ended up making a decision to go all in on e-commerce. And, I'm one for signs. I believe in signs, and things happen for a reason. And, I constantly had people actually hit me up beforehand saying they've got an e-commerce business, they need this help, that help. And I constantly said, no. Where now, it's totally different. All we do is we work with mostly do e-commerce, but there's still the direct response side of things where if you've got a direct response brand, which kind of just means digital products, if we can control the entire sales output, we also work with those clients.
Yeah, I like that shift that you made there from taking control of the process and really understanding the end customer, understanding how you can best serve the customer. And from what I'm hearing, you sort of found that the customers you were working with weren't implementing the rest of the process. You sort of set them up for success, but then they needed to do stuff on their own or have a process where you finished. The result sort of was up to them.
That's where they started to make money, was after the fact. And we would rather than make money from our inputs rather than having to wait for them to see if they've done their job properly after we've already done our job properly.
Yeah, it's super important to understand where do you fit into that user journey, right? Do you sort of kick it off at the start and catalyze the process? Are you kind of in the middle somewhere where you're doing all of the work, or are you at the closing end, right? So as an agency owner, It's really, really important to understand what bit am I actually doing and kind of what are my bookends almost, right? Where does my job start and where does my job finish? And with regards to that, how did you have to shift internal processes or systems or documentation? How did you make sure that once you were clear on that you got that across to clients so they really understood, right, this is what I'm doing, I'm delivering this bit, this is what you need to give me, this is the expectation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it actually made a massive change. If anything, it got easier. I say that e-commerce is far more complex. It's far easier in a way to systemize a local agency, but at the same time, it's also easier to systemize an e-commerce agency once you kind of understand how to do it. So, there's obviously your onboarding stages, but then as far as delivery goes, I find that's the $1 million question that a lot of people get stuck on. How do you systemize and optimize or organize your delivery so that one media buyer or one person can also have the same outputs as another? And I apologize in advance if you can hear some noise. I've got construction going on.
That's some construction going on.
Next door. Let me see if I can close the window really quick.
This is a digital life in 2021.
Oh my God. Every other house in the street's built except this one next door, and they tend to, right. Anytime I've got a call book, there seems to be mess or noise or banging going on. But Sorry, what was the question? That's just totally thrown me off.
You're sort of going into your systemization of your
the
business.
systems, of course. So yeah, I found my biggest bottleneck when it came to working with local clients was actually the being able to systemize it perfectly, because there were so many moving pieces. There was the landing pages, then there was the working out their offers and getting that perfect for every business. It's obviously going to be different. What type of businesses, what type of local businesses were we going to do? How are we going to deliver the leads? There's a lot of small, relatively easy to systemize moving parts, but very, very hard to systemize with the right people, I find, because you've got lower price clients. It's definitely hard to find the right talent at the right price, staff wise, and you've got to have a much larger volume of clients to be able to bring on new team members to handle those responsibilities. Where with e-commerce, because you're directly tied to the result, a lot of the time you can not only charge more because it is a harder job to do, but there's also usually performance bonuses attached to that. Well, that's how we charge. We have performance metrics involved with our retainers as well, to ensure that we're tied to the results so that we can work with the client on a closer basis in order to continue to scale up. Because as you scale, it does require more time, more input, more team and resources. So you need to be able to, be remunerated for that effort as well. I kind of learned that the hard way. So I found, as far as delivery goes, this took a long time for me to develop, but I found that I'm naturally a very visual thinker. So I see things in my head and I find it very hard to articulate to people just with words. A lot of the time, there's a lot of assumptive knowledge, and a lot of the time, people's eyes will glaze over anytime I talk about anything technical that might sound simple to me, but to other people, it doesn't make sense. And so I just started documenting what I saw in my head, how I wanted to lay things out on a setup basis or on a testing basis or any type of delivery. And I found that not only resonated to people who have working for me at the time, but also to the overall market as well. So I was able to share that, frameworks, flowcharts, and people tend to know me now for my frameworks and flowcharts, just because, it's easy to follow, it's easy to interpret and understand. And I've just found that's been the easiest way for me to systemize what would usually be a highly creative and rather hard to systemize industry. And we've been able to, the way I call it, I'm drawing the outline, but then my ad buyers can then be the artists and color it in however they see fit. So I'm still giving them the right guidance while they can then plug it in themselves, because the e-commerce industry needs to have a creative skill set, in my opinion. You need to be a creative problem solver while also still being extremely analytically driven, which is really hard to do. And so if I can give them the freedom to be creative while still giving them the right analytical guidance to say, this is the structure of it, the architecture of it, then, I've looked at that as a win-win.
Yeah, I love that. I think we're pretty similar in that visual, big picture, creative expression of ideas. Where for myself, I love a good model. I love a diagram. I love to sort of map things out and literally draw stuff out on paper. Yeah. And frameworks and models and that visual thing. Do you think that came from your sort of sales background at all, or that was it? Well, maybe a better question.
I think if anything, it didn't come from my sales background, because there was never a time where we used something like that. I think for me, I retain a lot of information just as I think it through. But for me, I'll retain it even better if I can then just rewrite it out in a way that's interpretable to me. So as I would always think about and go through my campaign setups, I never had anything written down to help really solidify that process. And so it made more sense to me that if I could document that, not only could I refer back to it if I needed to, or if I was ever kind of stuck for ideas or whatever else, because it's a constant, moving industry when you're working with e-commerce clients. It's never just set and forget like for some clients or some campaigns. And so for me, it was important to always have something to refer back to as like, this is the way to do it. Anytime you get stuck, there might be bits and pieces you can insert throughout the journey, but this is the overall set structure and procedure that we follow. And so, started off somewhat selfishly, but it also allowed me to retain that information so that I could also then, relay that to other people.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense in terms of where you always learn better when you can take an idea and put it into your own language or your own perspective, or if it's drawing it or writing a blog post or doing a social post or putting it into your own context, you're always going to hold on to it because you've got that kind of personal attachment, that personal trigger for the information. So I think that's just in general, that's an incredibly powerful way to learn and make sure that you're actually retaining information and knowledge and you're able to pass it on to others as well. Yeah. Do you find have you used that in your sort of sales approach to clients as well? Because I always found that, particularly when you're talking about technical stuff with clients that don't necessarily understand the technical stuff, if you can show them a picture or you can show them a visual or a chart, it's always going to be communicated in a better way than trying to get into the details. Have you sort of shifted that across at all?
Yeah, there's been the occasional times. I mean, a lot of people see it and they go, okay, I have no idea what any of this means, and so I'd rather just them do it for me. It shows that they know what they're doing. Or that they know what they're talking about, or they've referred to that chart before and say, I want you to set it up just like you've said. It's like, yeah, that's what we're doing. It's a step. There's steps. It's fine. We're going to get there. But I've also had other people. I mean, a lot of my sales calls are typically with people who've seen a lot of my content. A lot of my clients have been inbound in the sense that they have come to me based on seeing a lot of my content rather than say outbound where it's stone cold. But yes, I have used it once or twice where people, they might have asked the question, well, what makes you different? I don't really cop that much because I think the sales dynamic's a bit different. They come to me because they know me rather than they come to me, I go to them and therefore they have no idea who I am or why, it's even worth their time for us to be on the call. But in saying that, there still have been times where I've referred to the document saying, well, you won't find this anywhere else. This is literally our systems. Well, you might find it somewhere else, but this is going to be a duplication of what we've created. So, the very first mind map that I had shared, I think goes back to, it was either 2017 or 18, but it was from sharing that mind map, actually, that is what I realized that a lot of people really liked. They hadn't seen something like that before. It was simplifying the ad buying journey into, simple steps to follow that really it makes it simple even for rookies to be able to follow.
Yeah, you're creating really quite powerful, essentially sales tools and branding, positioning tools out of that sort of just a thinking process and trying to understand it for yourself. You've been able to map and model something that is now distinct to you, and you can say, this is how we do it. And it's a training model, it's a teaching model, it's a sales model. So I think it's a really nice, really powerful way to think about things. If you from just a brand and sort of market ownership and distinction perspective, if you can take what everybody else is doing and kind of just skin it into your own way, whatever that is, that becomes a really powerful marketing and branding and positioning component, which seems like what you've gotten out of it is that that sort of one, this is how I understand this thing, and now that you're literally putting yourself in your marketing.
Yeah, giving other people the opportunity to learn it in the same way.
And again, and also attracting people that sort of think like you because they can look at the same thing and go, okay, I get.
That's right.
I get where this is coming from.
Yeah, and they understand what they're going to get. I think a big fear that people have with working with any agency or freelancer or anything is not knowing what they're going to get. Because it's a service, you never know what you're going to get. It's all based on wishful promises. But if I can show you a journey or a map of like, this is how the overall architecture is going to look like. It might not have the colors and the flows involved with it, but it's an overall map of what you could expect us to be working on at any given time and the kind of guidelines that we follow. That's typically what people, they feel more confidence in that.
Yeah, love it. Sounds really powerful. Now, in terms of I'd like to get into this sort of before we wrap. In terms of your clients, what's happening out in the world of e-com? Are you finding are there more people sort of doing the drop shipping model, particularly here in Australia? They sort of on Amazon? Is it Amazon stores? Is it independent? Is it Etsy shops? What sort of, is it a mix of everything? Where's the sort of e-commerce space happening at the moment?
I mean, e-commerce is booming. Anyone in the industry will tell you that. As far as like paid media goes, it's getting more difficult. There's huge changes going on with the iOS 14 rollout or the 14.4 rollout. Things like they're blocking cookie tracking, and Facebook's whole attribution models and the way that they track and report is now changing. And it's thrown both their algorithm into a spin. And so as far as the challenges have gone, it's been a very challenging 6 weeks. Where the growth or what's the trajectory of e-commerce, it's definitely growing. Typically the clients I work with, predominantly in the US, one for obviously the market cap and the size, and two as well, I find that there's a different level of sophistication amongst the majority of e-commerce business owners over there. Well, this is the kind of decision I made around 2 years ago. I found while trying to appeal to Australian e-commerce business owners, there's a lot out there that want to get started. I think the issue is that there's a lot of Australian e-commerce business owners who don't really understand what they're doing. I find that the sophistication levels are really different. They don't think that Facebook's valuable. They think that they've got unrealistic expectations of the cost. Now, that's not everybody, but it's a lot of the people that I had spoken to at the time. All very hopeful, all very wishful, but none of them really with a strong understanding of the concept of the way Facebook and paid media applies to the growth of their overall brand. And they didn't understand the full life cycle of e-commerce, where, it's not just day one profitability. It's how do you build a brand? How do you build lifetime customers? How do you build people that will come back again and again and again? What's your website like? What's your branding like? What's your customer experience like? What's your support systems like? How quickly can we scale this up? And how are you going to get product into the country fast enough if we do continue to scale this up? Where in America, not only do they seem to be far more sophisticated around all of those things, the market you can reach is much larger. So as far as scalability goes, it's a lot easier. Consumerism over there is out of this world. The way I describe it is, in America, they could be stone broke and they'll still buy things, because there's this belief over there that to them, buying is their freedom. Like, America's very pro freedom, pro opportunity, just pro consumerism. Really, like it's capitalism. Really, over there is the biggest thing. I just find that in America they're far more likely to buy, and they enjoy buying everything. I think Amazon's done a great job of training them to buy things online. There are people who are just strictly Amazon buyers, but I think, as far as, if there's one standalone platform, I don't think that's really the case. I think where the future's heading, or where a lot of e-commerce businesses should be focusing based on where the future's heading, it's the fact that, there's a lot of platforms that people are shopping on now more than ever. It is Etsy, it is eBay, it is Amazon, it is Facebook, it is everything. And with Facebook and both Instagram, which is the same company, bringing out the Facebook shops and the Instagram shops, it's now also making it easier than ever for them to start building a shopping channel or a platform on their own platform, which for us marketers means that we've got more that we can track. But the technical side of that is a whole different story. But it's just a matter of being on every platform at any given time, which makes the life of a e-commerce brand owner a lot more difficult, because they got a lot more juggling to do, but a lot more fruitful as well if they can get it right.
Yeah, is that the case, that you're saying if you're 100% reliant on Facebook and then the Facebook algorithm changes overnight, you're kind of a bit in trouble, right? So what do you recommend for people in terms? You're saying you need to be on multiple platforms and selling through at least a few and not reliant on one?
I can kind of relate this back to the best clients that I've worked with. The best clients I've worked with are the ones who aren't solely dependent on Facebook. Facebook is just fuel to the fire. So rather than saying, Facebook is the entire, let's call it a vehicle, you want it to just be the engine, or say like a turbo or supercharger, where all it does is it makes it go faster, but you want it to already be in motion, right? It's the wind in the sails of a passing ship. If your ship's already sinking, all the wind in the sails is going to do is make it sink faster. So, you've got to have your brand really exposed to multiple platforms in multiple ways, whether that's through paid media or whether it's just organic presence. That way, if one channel does have an issue, for example, Facebook is one of the most volatile platforms that, any marketer will tell you it's one of the worst platforms to advertise on for stability. It can also be the most scalable and profitable, but overall, you want to have a strong ecosystem where you exist on all socials as much as possible that is relevant to your market. If you appeal to older people, you're not going to go and hang out on TikTok with them because they're just not there. So you want to choose wisely about where your market exists or where they're starting to head to and exist there, so that you can be around them at all times, so they feel like they see you everywhere, and so that you're not solely relying on just one platform.
If you had to pick the next platform, so I know that like where is it shooting? Because something like a TikTok. So I heard this somewhere the other day in a social channel. I think on Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is another interesting one. Probably not for e-com brands because it hasn't got the visuals, right? But in terms of TikTok is kind of where YouTube was 10 years ago. And sort of that's sort of what we're sort of relating.
So that's a discussion. That's a discussion of organic versus paid. So organically, yes, TikTok is 100% the next boom that you want to get on top of. But again, it depends on your product and your market. If you've got a product that's for older people, you're going to have a really hard time appealing to it because they don't care about TokTik. They don't even know the name of it correctly. So you need to really put your time and attention into where they're spending more of their time. For the older demographic, YouTube is going to win every day of the week. They spend so much time now consuming on YouTube. It's almost unhealthy. But the younger demographic, if you want to be able to have your brand priming the younger generation, much like the larger organizations like Nike and Adidas do, and you want to prime them to be ready to buy or to want your product now, then TikTok, there's no better platform. As far as paid media platform, 100% YouTube should get more love, because I think YouTube has better targeting opportunities. It's cheaper to run on. And again, I'm only speaking from the people I've spoken with. I don't run any YouTube ads, so I don't want to come across like an expert when I'm not. I just know a lot about the technical side of the platform. It's cheaper, that they still have far better targeting capabilities, thanks to the fact that they're owned by Google, who owns all in-market data and everything else. Plus, there's more users and they're growing just like Facebook. They're a powerhouse and people really underestimate that. The problem is the barrier to entry into YouTube is a lot harder because it takes better created videos. It takes more. Plus, their platforms are a lot harder to work with. Their ads platform is a bit uglier than Facebook, so it's not as user friendly. So while that is the case, there's a lot of opportunity for those who can suck it up and start working on some, well-structured creative that's going to work on YouTube to make a lot of money there. Because at the moment, it's quite cheap because there is that slight barrier to entry, and it's enough to scare people away. But in saying that, you've still got Pinterest and you've still got TikTok, and both platforms have an ad platform. TikTok is proving to be quite difficult as an ad platform to get going, but if you can find a good fit, then it's going to work well. It's just a matter of appealing to that younger demographic at a price point that they can afford, in a way that you can still scale it confidently without issues. So, again, it really comes down back to the brand and what's relevant to them, because it changes based on each client.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just go, well, we're going to do TikTok because everyone's on TikTok. If it's not relevant to your brand and your audience is 60 plus,
that's right.
So it's critical to understanding where your audience actually hangs out, and then, as you're saying, finding the right way to target them for the best price with media sources that you can actually produce consistently and well for that platform. So there is, we were literally having this discussion the other day on Clubhouse with a few social folks. But you've as you're saying, the barrier to entry on YouTube is production value to an extent, right? You've got to have pretty decent production value to really succeed on there. Where TikTok, Instagram stories, YouTube shorts, even these sort of shorter videos, it's okay just to flip your phone up and shoot something and upload it.
That's right.
So it's a really, really interesting playing field out there at the moment. It's so diverse and there's so many opportunities. So it's picking the right ones for your clients.
Yep. 100%.
Awesome. If people want to come and find you and they'd like to work with you, I've got a few details up on the screen. Where's the best place for people to find out more about you, connect with you, work with you, learn what you do?
So my LinkedIn is definitely an unloved child at the moment. It doesn't get any love. So LinkedIn is definitely out of the question. Facebook's probably the best place to find me. I spend a lot of time on there. Mostly just, in different Facebook groups and whatnot. So if you want to drop me a message or ask me any questions, the best place to find me will be on Facebook. You'll also find some of the content and some of the frameworks that I've actually mentioned on my Facebook. I give a lot of that stuff away for free. I've also got different links where you'll find my group. I've got a group where I share a lot of that information as well. So yeah, there's a couple of links. Once you go to my Facebook, you'll find out more information that way. But that's definitely the best place to start.
Awesome. So I just got up on the screen. That's your group there, the Facebook groups ROI Plus.
Correct. That's the one.
And what can people expect to grab in that group if they come and join you there?
It's definitely a lot more technical stuff. There's a few different wins posts, and we'll definitely get a lot of there's a few updates. I've got an e-com brand of my own now, so I've shared a few different wins and a few different big months in there as well about what's working for us. So I like to keep people updated with with my finger being on the pulse about what we're able to achieve and what we're seeing, especially across other clients' accounts as well, so that people don't think they're going crazy. Plus, I like to share a lot of new trainings, free trainings, things I don't really share anywhere else within that group as well, because we've got a lot of cool people in there, a lot of smart people, and it's a good little community. People are asking smart questions, and I've heard some pretty good results from the people who are following some of the content posts I make or some of the structures or trainings that I've put out in there. They're seeing some pretty good results. And just wanted to mention, I noticed that the IG handle there is actually wrong. I wasn't lucky enough to get just my name. Someone else has already got that. So it's Tyler Garner with an underscore at the end, but I don't really post much business stuff on there. So unless you want to see photos of my house being built or of, me and the wife or any kind of, photo pics that I actually won't take food photos. But if you just want to see a day-to-day life, and then feel free to follow me on Instagram, because I don't post much.
Connect with your personal brand over there.
That's right.
Awesome. That Facebook group sounds awesome. I'm sure. It sounds like a really valuable place for people to get in, sort of have that finger on the pulse. Sounds like you're really knowledgeable in the space. You got a really good handle on what's happening, what's coming, and how to position brands properly for success. Thanks for coming on the show. We sort of powered through. It's an absolute pleasure. As I said, you're very, very knowledgeable in the space. I'm sure your clients are finding massive value in the work they're doing with you. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and sort of, from my perspective, learning more about what's going on in the e-com space. It's always interesting to sort of hear what's going on out there in the world. Hopefully there's some value for the folks watching at home, that have tuned in to get some tips and takeaways and strategies for what's working out in the world at the moment. So thanks for dropping in. Thanks for hanging out for a half hour or so here, and I'll look forward to connecting over on Facebook. Check out a few photos of yourself hanging out on Instagram.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one. And we'll see you there. Cheers.